Welcome to The Explainer. So, if you've ever felt that the classic good versus evil struggle in fantasy is getting, a little tired, then you are in the right place. Today, we are going to deconstruct a really powerful narrative framework for creating characters with some serious psychological depth, moving way beyond the simple archetypes we're all used to.
All right, let's just dive right in. We'll start by taking a good look at that classic fantasy trope and why we need to move past it. Then we'll define the metaphysical engine that powers this whole framework. After that, we'll meet the wild archetype it creates, see how it just shatters tradition, and finally, really get a grasp on its ultimate purpose for storytelling.
First up, let's talk about building conflicts that are just so much more potent than your standard good guys versus bad guys. This is where the real psychological meat of our characters starts to form.
I mean, we see this fight everywhere, right? But the source material we're digging into today suggests there's a far more compelling and, frankly, a much more terrifying struggle that our characters can face.
So here's the crucial point. Instead of just moral dilemmas, this framework zeroes in on something deeper, a more fundamental conflict. You could call it ontological friction. It's that raw struggle between our desperate human need for our lives to matter versus the cold, hard fact that we live in a universe that is completely, utterly indifferent to us.
So now we're going to break down the two opposing cosmic forces that really power this internal conflict. You can think of these as the two poles of a magnet, just pulling a character's psyche in completely opposite directions.
On one side, you've got the gold. That is that burning, unquenchable drive to carve your name into history, to be remembered forever. And then on the other side, you have the verdant, the silent, inevitable, and frankly terrifying reality that the earth just consumes everything and everyone, no matter how great they were.
Now, what's really cool about this is how it breaks these forces down. The gold, which has its roots in Nietzsche's will to power, that's what creates the hero's fate, that endless treadmill of vengeance and honor. But the verdant, drawing from Camus, it offers this kind of terrifying liberation from that very cycle.
And it's this confrontation, right here, between the desire for a permanent legacy and the biological truth of decay that is precisely where the post-heroic archetype is born. The character is forced to look into this split mirror and see both their towering ambition and their inevitable quiet end.
And this quote, wow, it just brilliantly illustrates the core of what's called the verdant gold truth. It's a devastatingly simple idea. Even the greatest victories, the most epic sagas you can imagine, they just end up feeding the indifferent earth.
So, what kind of character is actually born from this insane internal conflict? Well, that brings us to our next section, the Wille-Narr. It's German, and it translates roughly to will fool. This is the archetype that crawls out of that metaphysical fracture we've been talking about.
Now, what's so essential to get is that this archetype, it isn't another hero, and it's not another villain. It's a radical reinterpretation of the will to power itself. Instead of trying to control everything, the Wille-Narr uses that same powerful drive to just laugh at the cosmic joke of control itself.
This mad prophet can only rise up from the silence that's left behind when the old ways, the endless cycles of honor and vengeance, have finally collapsed into total, undeniable futility. He basically emerges from the smoking wreckage of the heroic age.
This shows you the character's psychological journey. First, they have to accept total nihilism. That's the Untergang. Then, they weaponize laughter. And this isn't about joy. It's an act of pure defiance. And finally, they achieve the freedom of a child, playing a game they know is unwinnable, but playing it anyway with this incredible creativity and freedom.
And this is just fantastic for a writer. The archetype's tools physically represent this whole internal journey. The chipped axe shows that the old way, the hero's way, is broken. But the fool's rattle, with its little golden bells, shows a transformation of the gold's curse into a new tool for play.
Okay, so let's see how a writer can actually use this archetype to actively sabotage traditional heroic stories. This is where the framework becomes a really powerful tool for deconstruction.
So here we see a direct clash. In Norse tradition, the skald is the storyteller, the one who creates meaning, who turns all that bloodshed into glorious songs. And then the jester, our Wille-Narr, just strolls in and calls that glory a cage, exposing the entire saga as this magnificent but ultimately meaningless dance.
This perspective just completely reframes the entire heroic saga. It takes these grand themes of vengeance and glory and destiny, and it reduces them to something almost agricultural. It's a really shocking and powerful way to just flip audience expectations on their head.
And this brings us to the Wille-Narr's main weapon. It's not a sword.
It's an intellectual and spiritual assault called cosmic need. Think of it like a ritual insult, but when so profound it doesn't just hurt an opponent's pride, it makes their entire worldview collapse by forcing them to see how absolutely absurd their rage and ambition really are.
Just imagine a mighty warrior, all geared up for a climactic battle, and he gets told this. By saying this, the jester defeats them, not with strength, but with the terrifying realization that their entire life's purpose is a cosmic joke. I mean, you can't fight someone who has already made peace with the grave.
And this is exactly why the Wille-Narr rejects all those power struggles of the clan, the king, the herd. He understands that real freedom isn't about controlling the game. It's the freedom to simply get up and walk away from the board entirely.
Finally, let's just distill the core purpose of this whole framework and what it really allows a creator to achieve. This is the ultimate goal of the character's journey.
These 3 tenets right here, they are the key takeaway. They provide a clear path for a character from acknowledging the tragic nature of existence to finding a way to live beautifully and freely within it. It's a journey from being a slave to fate to becoming a sovereign of your own self.
So, what this framework really helps you do is write stories not about achieving some final static victory, but about the process of finding a sovereign way to meet the inevitable end. It's all about the dance, not the destination.
In this final, chilling thought from the source material, it leaves us with the ultimate question. In a world that's just consumed by its own solemn, heroic tragedies, a world that hasn't learned to laugh at itself, who is the true fool?